Part 68. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 671. John Lindsay had breakfast and lunch together. Sleeping for 2/3 of a day was an experience she had never experienced before, and she had some vague guesses. Wilhua's blood may have had a greater impact on her than originally thought, and yesterday's trip to the underground cave, it is estimated that her efforts to let her bask in the sun for 2 days were in vain. But she is a person who will not regret or think about her choices when she looks back on them. She firmly believes that every choice she makes is the optimal solution at the time, and better solutions will only appear now or in the future. She never suffers from internal friction. Never deny yourself. Only think about what is the best next step. After eating, she stopped thinking about how she could sleep for so long. Anyway, it had become a fact, so she could just finish what she needed to do while she still had the energy to avoid getting sleepy. While Shen Yunqing was busy dealing with the pile that Wuju had thrown over, Zhang Lingzi was in a good mood and went to see Wuju, who was still sitting cross-legged in meditation after nearly a day. You've been maintaining this posture for a long time. When you break through the confinement, your legs won't be useless, right? Your Majesty, are you sure that I can break through this confinement? You have to think for the best in everything, right? I think I can do it, so I must do it. Your Majesty thinks so, I feel relieved. Asterisk. Alber's Manor. Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing have been away for 3 days. Fortunately, Wuju had made sufficient arrangements before leaving. Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing specially left Changning behind before leaving. Yu Changning continued Wuju's arrangements, and Guan Yuan and Hemile woke up one after another on the same day. It's just that the methods used to control the two are different. Guan Yuan was introduced in advance and was controlled instantly at the critical moment. He has no memory of what he did at that time. Changning noticed something after asking him a few questions after he woke up, and told him exactly what happened at that time. Guan Yuan's face turned pale immediately after hearing this. He was actually controlled and harmed Mr. Shen. Fortunately, nothing serious happened to anyone. I immediately got out of bed and went over to apologize. He was quickly stopped by Changning. What Sister 11 and Mr. 11 said before they left was that this matter has passed. Your daughter Xiao Tao provided them with some information at the beginning, and now the merit and demerit are equal. Since you are awake now, I will make arrangements. You go back to your country to be with your family. Guan Yuan could only suppress his gratitude in his heart, unable to restrain his excitement as he waited to return home to hug his wife and daughter in person. But the situation of Hemir, who woke up later, was not as optimistic as Guan Yuan's. Wilhua's control over him was much deeper, and he used the same method of cultivating followers subtly. While he was under control, he still retained his own reason and thoughts, but he would infinitely converge to the master's orders. Now that Wuhua is dead, the seeds of believers buried in his mind have been pulled out. After recalling what he did under Wuhua's control, Hemile almost suffered a mental breakdown. Abscoli rushed over after receiving the news. Seeing his appearance, he knew he was going to suffer. This heir may be deposed. The more rational a person is, the more painful he will be after he wakes up after encountering this kind of thing. Unable to accept behaviors that were once irrational or even foolish, leading to self-destructive tendencies. Abscoli immediately invited a top psychiatrist, but the effect was not great. Changning naturally reported the news that the two men had woken up to Shen Yunqing via phone. In passing, I mentioned Hermel's self-destructive tendencies. Zhang Lingzi was nearby. Hearing this, he asked, did he commit suicide? That's not true, but people can't eat. When they were in a coma, they took nutritional injections, and now they still rely on nutritional injections. They vomit when they eat and drink water. They look quite self-loathing. Like this. In Changning's opinion, it is no different from chronic suicide. Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing looked at each other. I suddenly remembered someone. I thought about it too. Received what Chang Ning relayed from Abscoli. Originally, this great-nephew became the person he is today because of the woman named Wu Hua. Now he has finally woken up and it is too late to hide from everything related to Wu Hua. Miss Zhang proposed this. Is the solution really feasible? She struggled all night, and when she got up the next day, she called Hemel's psychiatrist. After learning that the effect of psychological counseling was minimal, she finally made up her mind. So Abshamir felt that his whole life had been turned upside down by Wu Hua, and now he just wanted to close his eyes and wait for death. When he saw his great-aunt came to visit him again and was about to get up and call someone, he saw the other party waving his hand and gave the order directly, "Take it away." Hemile. Who will tell him what happened? Until he was put into the car, he noticed that the driver in front of him was the captain of his personal escort, and subconsciously asked, "Where are we going?" The head of the family said that your destination this time is Wu Hua's lair, and there will be someone to help you when you get there. Hamel's eyes only felt dark. Has your great-aunt completely given up on herself? That was fine, he felt that he could no longer bear the burden of being the heir to the Albers family. But I always feel that something is wrong. If you really give up on him and just let him fend for himself in that room, why go to all the trouble to send him to the place you least want to face? Is it punishing him for his vulnerability? Just like this, he was thinking wildly all the way. When the car stopped, he saw a familiar face as soon as he was helped out of the car, and his pupils shrank uncontrollably. He still remembered how he cooperated with Wu Hua to scheme against Zhang Lingzi. Now that he had woken up, he felt shameless. Unexpectedly, when he looked away due to guilt, Zhang Lingzi looked at him like a strong man who could squeeze hard. When it comes to hating Wu Hua, judging from Hemile's series of performances after he woke up, he should be no less than her. It's just that she has already done the killing of Wu Hua, so this person can only retreat and use other methods to get revenge. Blind self-loathing and self-destruction seemed to her to be an escape, and it didn't matter. She gave Hemile a chance to take revenge and vent, and was too busy to care about self-loathing and self-destruction. And she will not be as soft-hearted and distressed as Abscori. She believes in one of the following: people are forced out. Hamel soon knew why he was brought to Zhang Lingzi. Although Wu Hua is dead, there is still a lot of mess left behind. There are even many disciples who are particularly enthusiastic about immortality under her influence. If these people are released, who knows whether the same disaster as Wu Hua will happen in the future, and maybe one day it will harm the Albers family again. On other heirs. Whoever allows the Albers family to gain a foothold here will be a big success in itself. There are also some intricate social relationships left over by Chang Kangman. After all, if such a large force wants to maintain its existence, it is inevitable to develop offline. These offlines can provide various conveniences for the people of Changkangmen to travel and are also convenient for laymen. Some serve as money bags for Changkangmen's expenses. I don't know. Once I understand, I will just feel creepy. Once he was bitten by the snake Wu Hua, he would be afraid that someone like Wu Hua would appear again for the rest of his life. At that time, there may not necessarily be anyone to help the Albers family kill another Wu Hua. Even if he knew that Zhang Lingzi was also using him and taking advantage of his status as the eldest son of the Albers family, Hemile could not bear to feel self-loathing and self-destruction. He now only felt that 24 hours a day was not enough. Chang Kangman must be completely destroyed as soon as possible, and during this period he is willing to be used. Zhang Lingzi asked Shen Yunqing to take a photo of Hemile while eating and doing work, and sent it to Abscoli. Congratulations, you are on the mend. You can eat 4 meals a day, and you are a little fatter than when you first came here. Abscoli, who had already learned from the captain of the team, sent out together the specific methods Zhang Lingzi used to cheer up Hemir. You can be busy for 18 hours a day, 24 hours a day. How can you not eat 4 meals to maintain your strength? For the first time in her life, she felt speechless. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 672. After taking over the cleaning work, Hemile, who had such a positive work attitude that he could work hard, and Wuju, who finally freed his 2 arms after his head, Shen Yunqing decisively pulled away and breathed handed over the work cleanly. Zhang Lingzi doesn't want to stay here anymore. Although she could bask in the sun anywhere, this place probably had too many traces and smells of wuhua, which made her subconsciously feel uncomfortable. Instinct told her to leave as soon as possible. She respects intuition. Before leaving, Shen Yunqing went to say goodbye to Wuju. Zhang Lingzi didn't follow her. She had been in better spirits these past 2 days. The lines on her hands did not continue to spread upwards, but faded a little. She couldn't tell without looking carefully, but she had been observing. This should be the reward for her hard work. Except for eating and going to her room to sleep at night, she spends the rest of her time basking in the sun. The weather was fine now, so she was basking in the sun outside and waiting for people to come out. The sound of footsteps came from behind. Zhang Lingzi looked back and her eyes fell on Shen Yunqing, who was walking towards her. At the same time, she inadvertently passed by a figure flashing past deep in the corridor. Have everything been explained? Well, let's go. The 2 of them walked side by side in the direction of the car. When the matter here is over, what are Wuju going to do with Yin Chang? Zhang Lingzi didn't spend much time basking in the sun these days, and she wasn't deaf. Although she didn't specifically ask about it, she had gone through all the progress of the investigation and handling. We also know what kind of experiments the children we saw lying in coffins in the underground cave were used as. Either, it's a tool, or, it is a container. This is about how to cultivate it later. Fortunately, there is still room for rescue for these children. They themselves have been living in the dark underground and have not been released to do evil. But Yin Chang was once an experimental subject. No matter how pitiful his experience was, the evil he did after being released was still real. Nowadays, even if you make meritorious deeds, it is just to make up for it, and it is impossible to offset the merits and demerits. She was really curious about how Wuju should deal with Yin Chang. Shen Yunqing walked to the car and opened the door. Wuju said he would take him back to the temple. Zhang Lingzi paused before getting into the car. A monk? Shen Yunqing nodded, probably. Zhang Lingzi. She couldn't help but imagine what Yin Chang would look like with his head shaved. Hearing the sound of the seat belt being buckled, he retracted his imagination and said, "This is indeed a solution. There is no way for a person like Yin Chang to directly report the crime, arrest him and put him in jail, but he cannot kill him directly. After all, this person has now served his crime well. Going to a temple to become a monk is also considered a form of imprisonment. This can be regarded as reaching the same destination through different paths." Shen Yunqing hummed slightly. "When I return to the imperial capital, I will also go to the temple. Your Majesty, do you want to come with me?" "Why are you going to the temple?" "The beads I need are in the temple. Wuju won't be able to go back for a while, so I called the old abbot who adopted him. The old abbot was too old and couldn't go down the mountain, so I had to go and get it in person." Zhang Lingzi nodded decisively. "Go." Speaking of going to the temple, she remembered one more thing. Didn't I say before that I wanted to take Anan to the temple to pay homage to her and keep her safe? The 2 things can be done together. I don't know if their school is on holiday now. While the 2 people were talking in the back seat, the car was driving at a constant speed. The moment the car left the boundary of Changkangmen, Zhang Lingzi seemed to have something, and couldn't help but look back at the huge castle that Xiao Tao mentioned when she was unconsciously hypnotized. Watching it getting smaller and smaller in the field of vision, I felt that the shallow haze covering my heart was gradually dissipating. She looked at it for a long time, and Shen Yunqing also looked at it. What's wrong? Zhang Lingzi looked away. Maybe this place is really unlucky. I felt a lot more relaxed as soon as I came out. I feel the same way. It was exactly noon when the car drove back to Alber's Manor. Changning had received the news in advance that the two of them were coming back. As soon as they got off the car, the food was already ready. Zhang Lingzi had already slept in the car for a while, and didn't plan to take a lunch break after eating. She just sat on the rocking chair in the yard and basked in the sun while listening to Changning's report on the situation here. Guan Yuan left by plane yesterday. I received a call from him this morning. He got off the plane and the family of 3 reunited. He said that after Sister 11 and your husband return to China, they will come to thank you and apologize. Zhang Lingzi listened very calmly. It seems like he's back to normal. Gu Jiantong is still looking at Wu Hua's body. It's been several days and he hasn't gained any courage at all, but he's quite honest. How is the purification going? Changning paused. Master said that she was no longer a person when she was killed. The blood was not blood, the flesh was not flesh, and the only thing that still retained some human characteristics was a heart. This purification is really literal. There is only one heart left. Even if the purification is completed, I looked at it today and it's almost there. After Zhang Lingzi killed Wu Hua with the antique sword, she never saw Wu Hua's body again. This was even the first time she asked how it was purified. She didn't expect it to be like this. What to do with the heart left behind? Master left me a box, I will put it in it and take it home. Zhang Lingzi. She suddenly wanted to ask Wuju why he took away Wu Hua's heart. Sister 11, Master, is he feeling better? Still recovering, I can barely move my arms now, Zhang Lingzi said and looked at Changning who was squatting in front of the rocking chair. Changning, do you want to go back with me and Yunqing, or go to Changkang Gate to meet your master and the others? I want to take Wu Hua's heart back home first, and I won't join master and the others, Changning said and looked up at Shen Yunqing who had just come out of the living room. Sir, Sister 11, when do you plan to return home? Zhang Lingzi also looked over. You make up your mind. Tomorrow, I'll be busy with work at the end of the year. I just took a call from Hizhu. He can't hold on any longer, and he's already living in the company. Zhang Lingzi, then tomorrow. Changning was going to collect Wu Hua's heart. Zhang Lingzi guessed that the box Wuju left behind was probably not an ordinary box, otherwise it wouldn't be able to pass the security check. By the way, Sister 11, once the heart is taken away, there is no need for Gu Jiantong to guard it. Where are you going to send her next? Go back and forth wherever you go. It would be fine if Wuju didn't get into trouble this time, but now, it's better not to send people over to cause trouble. Good. Gu Jiantong almost thought it was an auditory hallucination when she heard Changning coming to her and saying that she could look back home. I was stunned for several seconds before I realized that it was true. I immediately ran out of the house in a hurry, and when I felt the sunshine falling on my body, I almost shed tears. The torture is finally over. Changning looked at her staring blankly at the sun and said, someone will come and take you to the airport later. Gu Jiantong then turned his stiff neck and looked at her. Zhang Lingzi, don't you want to see me? As a winner, doesn't this person want to see her in such a mess? Even if she hasn't looked in the mirror in the past few days, she can still imagine what she looks like now. Estimated to be no better than a ghost. I ask Sister 11 for you. Sister 11 said. Changning crossed his arms and imitated Zhang Lingzi's tone when he answered her, no time. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, X. Press 11. Chapter 673. Zhang Lingzi watched Chang Ning come back carrying an unattractive small box. From the outside, this is the smallest safe, the one with a password. Who would have thought that it contained a heart? Are you sure you can't find out when you get on the plane? Master said it's okay, so it should be okay. Chang Ning still trusted his cheap master. After all, monks don't lie. Sister 11, do you want to take a look? This heart is different from a normal person's heart. Zhang Lingzi originally wanted to shake her head, but paused when she heard the shaking motion behind her. Then, let's take a look. Chang Ning used the password to open the safe and took out a transparent box from inside. The box was also engraved with incomprehensible golden symbols, at least Zhang Lingzi couldn't understand any of them. But she guessed that these symbols were used to avoid security checks. The transparent box has no obstruction, and you can clearly see the fist-sized heart inside through the box. The color is bright, and it doesn't look like it has stopped beating for several days. When Zhang Lingzi first looked at it, she thought it was a stone that looked like a heart. This heart does seem a bit strange. She thought she would feel disgusted when she saw part of Wu Hua's body, but in fact, she didn't. Why is the blood all over Wu Hua's body turned black, but his heart is still red? Furthermore, the only thing left after being purified is the heart. Why did Wu Ju let Chang Ning take the heart home alone? There must be some reason for this. It's just that the person is not around and the body is inconvenient now, so Zhang Lingzi has to put aside this doubt first. Put it back. Chang Ning closed the lockbox again. Gu Jiantong should have boarded the plane by now. She also asked me, Sister 11, if you still see her. I told her, no time. Not to mention how frightened the Gu family members were when they saw Gu Jiantong, who had finally been released but had completely changed. Abscoli also received news that Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing were preparing to leave. Wei Ni was sent here to convey her great aunt's invitation to have a dinner together before they left, but Zhang Lingzi politely declined. Her hands can barely move now, but she can't even hold a spoon, let alone chopsticks. Shen Yunqing usually acts as her hand, but when eating, it's either just the two of them, or there are familiar people around her. Now she has to be fed in public. Even though she thinks she is thick-skinned enough, she still feels uncomfortable. It's okay if you don't want to eat this dinner. Okay then, Wei Ni naturally would not force the person in front of her to make things difficult for her. She skipped the dinner and talked about another matter. I can book the air tickets just by making a phone call. You can just board the plane directly when you arrive at the airport. Zhang Lingzi did not refuse this little favor. Then I'll trouble Miss Wei Ni. You're welcome, it's just a little effort. Not long after seeing Wei Ni off, Zhang Lingzi received a text message on her phone that the flight reservation was successful. The plane will take off at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. When it lands in the imperial capital, it will be the morning over there. Looking at the words of the destination Imperial City on the screen, I suddenly felt like I was returning home. The original plan was to go back within a week, but Wu Hua interfered with it, and it took too long. These past few days, she had not woken up until 90 o'clock in the morning at Changkangmen. Every time she woke up, the bed next door was empty. Shen Yunqing had gotten up several hours before her and went out to handle a lot of work. Before going to bed, Zhang Lingzi also specifically reminded Shen Yunqing to wake her up early. As a result, she didn't use Shen Yunqing's alarm clock at all the next morning. At dawn, there was no movement in the bed next to her, so she woke up first. I was a little dazed when I suddenly woke up so early. After regaining consciousness, Zhang Lingzi silently came to a conclusion. Indeed, only Chang Kangman could defeat her. The sound of someone getting up quietly woke up the person lying in the bed next to him. The first time Shen Yunqing opened her eyes, she looked over at Zhang Lingzi's bed and saw a figure sitting beside the bed. Zhang Lingzi saw that he looked a little dazed when he just woke up, and couldn't help laughing. Did I wake you up? I don't seem to be so sleepy after leaving Changkangmen. Shen Yunqing opened the quilt, sat down, and turned on the lamp on the bedside. Zhang Lingzi consciously stretched out her hand. Today seems a little better than yesterday. Speaking, he moved his movable fingers. Shen Yunqing came closer and looked at it carefully, nodded and hummed. After putting on her gloves, Zhang Lingzi took her hand back and said, "Don't worry, it will be fine. There is still plenty of time, so you can help me wash my hair." To be honest, if her hands had not been temporarily disabled during this period, she would not have been able to discover her skills in hair washing and massage. Prime Minister Shen. It's much more comfortable than letting her wash her hair by herself. After washing my hair and drying it, there was a knock on the door. Sister 11, "Sir, are you up? Come out for breakfast." Coming. The luggage had been packed last night. When the three of them were eating out, someone helped carry the luggage to the car. Espercoli took Winnie and rushed over to see her off. When Zhang Lingzi came out, she stepped forward and hugged this mysterious and powerful girl. "Next time you come to the town, come and live in the manor. This yard is reserved for you." The other party not only rescued the Albers family from a potentially huge crisis, but also gave the almost crippled Hemile a second life. Only a fool would not want to have a good relationship with such a friend. And she was also sure that although this was Zhang Lingzi's first time at an international fashion festival, it would never be her last. "You are also welcome to visit me in Huazhu, and when the time comes, let me do my best as a landlord." Wei Ni, who was waiting behind her great-aunt, suppressed her excitement and gave Zhang Lingzi a gentle hug. After hearing this, she nodded repeatedly, "I will go. I have always longed for the delicious food in China. Grand-aunt is too old to move, but she can still fly to China." Farewell to Abscoli and Winnie, who came to see them off. The three of them got into the car that took them to the airport. The journey to the airport was still smooth, except when going through the security check, which made Zhang Lingzi nervous. She had seen how powerful the security check machine was. It could illuminate anything, as if everything was transparent under this instrument. It's just that when the safe was illuminated, it was completely blank. It also made the security personnel couldn't help but look at Chang Ning, who was carrying the safe. "It's obviously just an empty box, why are you so careful in your movements?" After passing the security check, board the plane directly in the first batch. There were not so many outsiders and not so many eyes this time, so Wei Ni directly booked a luxurious double seat for Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing. "Just close the door and you will find a small box with full privacy. Across the aisle is Chang Ning's seat." At the right time, the plane took off. After flying for more than 10 hours, the flight attendant's gentle reminder sounded in the cabin. Feeling that the blindfold was gently pulled off by a hand, Zhang Lingzi opened her eyes, stood up and turned her head to look at the small window on the side. A red sun is gushing out. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 674. Hizhu was waiting at the airport pickup station holding a bouquet of flowers. Not long after the news of the flight's landing came out, he caught a glimpse of his boss among the people coming out. Then he took off his sunglasses and rubbed his eyes. The person walking next to the boss had his hair loosely with only a hairpin. He was wearing a bloated black down jacket that reached to his ankles. He covered most of his face with a scarf and a pair of thick cotton gloves. At first glance, it seems that this woman has no idle baggage at all. She must be a wife, right? He guessed that he might be afraid of being recognized at the airport. After all, the popularity at the international festival a few days ago has not subsided yet. But this was a bit too low-key. He was a little bit hesitant to recognize it at first glance. Until the two of them got closer and saw those familiar eyes clearly, Hizhu straightened up quickly and stepped forward holding flowers. "Boss, madam." Zhang Lingzi looked at Hizhu's panda eyes and thought of what Shen Yunqing said about this man who was so busy that he slept in the company, Where did you get here? Company. After Shen Yunqing took the flowers, Zhu hesitated for a moment, then took out a tablet from his coat pocket and opened it to see a dense to-do list. Boss, do you want to take a look at this? I updated it on the way to pick up the plane, and there are a few items that I really can't postpone. When Shen Yunqing took the tablet, Zhang Lingzi turned her head and glanced over, taking a deep breath. Dizziness. So the two people who were about to return to Z1 decided to follow Zhu to the company. As for the luggage, there is Chang Ning who can help them take it back to Z1. This is Zhang Lingzi's second time coming to Yungzi building. She still remembered the first time she came here, not long after she woke up in this world. She accidentally learned that she had a husband who was a mysterious dragon, and she rushed over decisively to meet the real person. It's just that I only had a cup of tea in the waiting room after I arrived, and I didn't get to see the people I wanted to see when I left. Now, she came with the person she wanted to see at that time. The mood is really a bit subtle. It was working time when the three of them arrived, but this time Zhang Lingzi didn't even see the little girl at the front desk who was in charge of reception. After they got off the car in the underground parking lot, they went straight to the special elevator next to them without stopping, and went straight to the top floor. Office. The elevator door opens and the lights turn on. All you can see is a large comprehensive office that dominates the entire floor. This is the first time Zhang Lingzi has seen the place where Shen Yunqing officially works. It doesn't look like your style. Shen Yunqing put the bouquet aside and skillfully helped her unzip her down jacket. At that time, the whole building was decorated by a designer. I wasn't there often, so I didn't bother with it. Well, I came to see you before, and what your front desk said was that our boss often travels on business. Taking off her bloated down jacket, Zhang Lingzi subconsciously stretched her waist and passed her hand over. Shen Yunqing took off her gloves again. Zhu, who was following the two of them, had not closed his mouth since just now. He wanted to say, the boss looks so skillful in serving his wife. Until I saw Zhang Lingzi take off a pair of gloves, another pair of gloves was revealed. Is it popular in the fashion industry to wear gloves on top of each other now? What kind of fashion is this? Are you determined not to do fashion? My hand is hurt a little, it's inconvenient, and I'm afraid of the cold. It was only then that Zhu realized that he had accidentally spoken out what was in his mind. He nodded quickly, it doesn't matter, right? You'll be fine in 2 days. After serving His Majesty, Shen Yunqing took off his coat, rolled up his sleeves to get water and made tea by himself, and then told Zhu, go to the canteen below to get 2 breakfasts and bring them up, and find a strict-tongued assistant. There are many meetings to be held on the to-do list on the tablet. He will definitely not be able to stay with His Majesty all the time today, so he can only find an assistant to take his place. Zhu took the order and hurriedly went to do it. Standing in the rapidly descending elevator, his mind slowly returned to its normal activity. It seems that the injury on Madame's hand means she cannot move while recovering from the injury, so it's no wonder she came to the company with her boss. It's a big problem to be unable to move your hands to eat. So, the boss is feeding the wife during this time? He couldn't help but imagine the scene, and decided to evacuate as soon as the food was delivered. There were some scenes that his little assistant could not watch. Zhang Lingzi sat opposite and watched Shen Yunqing make tea. Did the assistant give it to me? Otherwise this person wouldn't have emphasized the need to be strict with his words. There are a lot of meetings today, and I won't be able to take care of you during that time. Zhang Lingzi felt that she should have nothing to do. She could just wait until Shen Yunqing came back from the meeting to eat and drink. After all, no matter how busy you are, you still need to eat and drink. But before she could speak, her cell phone lit up next to her. It's Tong Yu. Shen Yunqing clicked on his cell phone, and after connecting it, he found a cell phone stand and stood it up. Zhang Lingzi silently swallowed back the sentence that she didn't need an assistant. She really needs a hand to assist her when answering the phone. Xiao 11, Yu. Tong Yu was about to ask if she was off the plane when she saw the background behind her artist and twisted her tongue. Where are you? This doesn't look like Ziwan or Zhang Lingzi's own residence. In Shen Yunking's office. He has accumulated a lot of work during this period. Zhu picked us up as soon as we got off the plane. Tong Yu. After 2 seconds of silence, she choked out 3 words, "Thank you for your hard work. I'm okay, mainly because he's busy. Actually, you don't have time to spare. I just thought that you should take a rest today as soon as you get off the plane. After you have rested, we will meet tomorrow to discuss the next work. The most important thing is the 2 endorsements we just won. The brand's intention is that it should be launched in time for the Chinese New Year, and there is also promotion of new dramas from China television. This is something that your entire crew came together to do, and there is also a New Year's Eve variety show invitation." Zhang Lingzi heard this and even forgot to drink the tea brought to her. Taking this into consideration, she has a lot on her plate. Compared with Shen Yunqing, it's just not as urgent as him. "Sister Tong, I have a private schedule tomorrow, why don't you come over and discuss it with me today? I slept for a long time on the plane, and I'm still very energetic now." Tong Yu picked up the cup and took a sip of water. Just as she was about to nod, she thought of something. "You just said you were in Mr. Shen's office. Does that mean you are in Yongzi building?" "Yeah, but there's no need to be in a hurry, we haven't had breakfast yet." "Hang up the video." Tong Yu leaned back and raised her hand to wipe her face. She has never thought about going to the Yongzi building where Shen is located, sitting in the chairman's office on the top floor, and discussing the next work with her artists. "Tong Yu, you are ready to make a career. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry." Author, Press 11. Chapter 675. Zhu walked out of the restaurant carrying his packed breakfast and almost bumped into a colleague who was walking and working while holding a tablet. The other party adjusted the black-rimmed glasses on the bridge of his nose and said, "Good morning, Mr. He." "Good morning." Zhu nodded. The moment the two of them were about to pass by each other, Zhu suddenly stopped and turned his head to look over. His eyes looked a little more surprised behind the lenses. "Do you have anything to tell me?" "There is indeed a temporary job." Zhu didn't forget that his boss not only asked him to come down to get 2 meals, but also gave him another task. Find an assistant who is strict-tongued. Before looking for someone, he had already thought about all the assistants in the secretariat in his mind, but he was still a little undecided. "Until I saw this Liang Qingqing." Liang Qingqing is also a member of the secretariat. He recruited her 3 months ago. The first impression this girl gave him was that she was honest and silent, even a little dull. In the huge secretariat, most people are very versatile, but there are also people like Liang Qingqing who just like to do their own work quietly. Liang Qingqing does not have the ability to be all-rounder, and has only a weak relationship with other colleagues. She passed the probation period purely because of her strong work ability. This girl doesn't gossip, talks little, and she doesn't look like a star chaser. Zhu snapped his fingers in his mind. "That's right, it's her. Are you going to eat?" Liang Qingqing blushed. "Well, I accidentally got up late this morning." "In this way, after you finish your meal, you can go back and hand over the work you have to do today to others, and then go to the boss's office to wait. Your work location today will be transferred to the boss's office." Liang Qingqing opened her mouth and saw Zhu was about to leave. "Ju, what kind of job is it specifically?" "Just take care of our boss's wife, don't worry, she's easy to get along with. I'm going to deliver the food first, I'll be there in about half an hour." Liang Qingqing was left standing there blankly for a long time. "Boss, madam. When did the boss get a wife?" Unfortunately, the person who could answer her questions had already hurried into the elevator. "The top floor." Zhu put down the lunch box. "I asked Liang Qingqing from the secretariat." That girl has a quiet temperament and will be here in half an hour. Shen Yunqing nodded. Agent Tong will come over later. Tell the front desk in advance to give her temporary access to the top floor. He Zhu responded and exited solemnly. He was not at all curious about how his boss fed his wife. Liang Qingqing returned to the secretariat from the restaurant after dinner. When handing over work to her colleagues, she was asked what temporary tasks she had received. She hesitated but did not disclose it. They in the secretariat are already the group of people closest to the boss, and they have no idea about the existence of the boss's wife, let alone the people in other departments. She guessed that the boss didn't want too many people to know. As for why she was singled out by Mr. He this time, she silently pondered for a long time. Firstly, it was a perfect meeting, and secondly, maybe it was because she didn't talk much and just liked to immerse herself in doing things. Looking at the time, almost half an hour had passed. She hurried to the door of her boss's office, took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Soon a voice came from inside, "Come in." The voice is very young, and their boss is not even 30 years old either, but the boss always makes employees like them ignore their age accidentally. Liang Qingqing pushed open the ajar door. She was not qualified enough. This was the first time she entered this office since she joined the company. Moreover, instead of coming to report to the boss, I was singled out to take care of the mysterious boss's wife. I have to say that it felt a bit strange. But when she entered the door and saw the figure sitting on the pure white sofa, she was caught off guard and froze. "Ginger, Ginger." Zhang Lingzi raised her eyebrows when she saw this. "You know me." "I know you," Liang Qingqing nodded. The glasses on the bridge of her nose almost fell off. She quickly fixed them and took a few steps forward. "Hello, madam, I am Liang Qingqing from the secretariat. Mr. He asked me to come and take care of you." "My hand is injured," Zhang Lingzi raised her gloved hand. "It's inconvenient to carry things, so I have to ask you to take over my hand today." Liang Qingqing looked up and nodded while holding her glasses. Okay. Don't be nervous, sit down. I will call you if necessary. You can do your own thing at other times." Liang Qingqing sat down as instructed. Her sitting posture was quite standard. She didn't want to be nervous, but she couldn't control it at all. She doesn't have much daily entertainment, and she doesn't chase stars, but who makes the person in front of her so popular? Even if she doesn't search for the words Zhang Lingzi, she can still see relevant notifications when she opens her phone and computer. Moreover, Zhang Lingzi was also the wife of their boss. The amount of information was so overwhelming that she was still confused. Fortunately, it didn't make her nervous for too long, as someone knocked on the office door again. Before Zhang Lingzi could speak, she quickly stood up and went over to open the door. Tong Yu walked in from outside carrying her bag. She immediately saw the black gloves on Zhang Lingzi's hands. They were very eye-catching on the white sofa. "Your hands are not healed yet." "It's not all over yet, but it's almost over. I have to consider giving you some insurance." Tong Yu sat down and wanted to take Zhang Lingzi's hand to have a look. When she was dodged, she remembered that this man had said not to touch her. "Does it still hurt?" Be careful in the future, you are covered in gold." After Liang Qingqing recognized the manager of their boss's wife, she poured a glass of water over and said, "Please drink water. This is the assistant assigned to me by Yun Cheng. I thought your hand was healed. If I had known better, I would have brought Zheng Zheng over to take care of you." Tong Yu took a sip of water, took out the tablet from the bag she brought and prepared to start working. Zhang Lingzi looked at her resolute demeanor and said, "Let's go to the window, where we can bask in the sun. Let's chat while basking in the sun." "Tong Yu, the last time I saw you, I was sunbathing in the yard, and my interest has not subsided. Let's go." She stood up with a cup in one hand and a tablet in the other. She looked at the large office in front of her and said with a smile, I never thought I would be able to sit here and talk about work one day, thanks to you. John Lingzi looked at her hands. It should be thanks to these hands that are still useless. This is the preliminary shooting plan sent by the car brand. It is divided into indoor and outdoor studios. You can just pose inside the studio, but outside the studio you have to drive the car for a real run. I remember you took the test. You have a driver's license, right? It was just the original examiner, but I haven't touched a car for a long time, so I need to get familiar with it first. Then wait until you are ready. Let's arrange a separate day to get familiar with the car. Tong Yu flipped through the calendar to see which days were free. As soon as she marked it, she heard voices coming from behind. Going to a meeting? Then I'll go to his office and wait for him. The three people in the office looked back. The young man who had just opened the door and was about to come in suddenly stopped at his feet. Then he rubbed his eyes and looked back at the marked floor numbers. Am I on the wrong floor? His first cousin, who is a man who is also a personal assistant, actually has 3 women sitting in his office. Look back and take another look, etc. Looks familiar, cousin sister-in-law. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 676. So far, there are only 2 people who call themselves cousin-in-law. Shen Chuiu and Shen Heshen. She is already very familiar with the siblings. This is the 3rd person to call her that. The visitor was wearing a light gray casual suit, his hair was shaved a little short, and his eyebrows were somewhat ridged. He didn't look much like Shen Chuiu or Shen Heshen. At this moment, the way he walked towards me happily and casually looked like a college student who was full of energy. John Lingzi was sure she had never seen this person before, but she could guess it. Shen Yunqing told her that in his generation, the Shen family has 4 descendants including him. As for collateral lines, they can be ignored. She has already seen the first 3, and this last one seems to be called Shen Qingzhou. Just as he remembered the name, John Lingzi heard his self-introduction. Hello, cousin, I'm Shen Qingzhou, just call me Xiaozhou. Can you give me 2 autographs? John Lingzi. This one is much more straightforward than the other cousins. It's definitely a familiar one. Why 2? Shen Qingzhou replied quickly, my fiancé and I are both fans of my cousin. Of course, they both have different reasons for being fans. The fiancé only has the temperament and appearance of her cousin-in-law. He just admired him. It turned out that there was someone in the world who could conquer his eldest cousin. John Lingzi is in his eyes. After all, he has felt since he was a child that his eldest cousin is likely to be alone all his life if he is not close to women. In the end, the certificate was obtained earlier than him. When he got the news from his father, he was simply shocked. But even if he was curious about his real-life divine cousin, Shen Qingzhou did not take the liberty to look at her more, and even stopped when she was more than 1 meter away. Then there was a pair of gloved hands in front of me. I have to owe it first, my hand was injured recently and I can't write. After Shen Qingzhou looked at it for a few times, he suddenly frowned. What on earth did my cousin do for food? He actually got you hurt. In fact, Tong Yu had thought about this when she saw John Lingzi's injured hand, but she didn't dare to say it. Hearing this, the slight displeasure of talking about being interrupted at work immediately dissipated completely. Otherwise, she would have wanted to nod if she still had sense. It's not his fault. John Lingzi didn't explain much and decisively changed the subject. You have something to do with your cousin. Shen Qingzhou laughed. Didn't I just look at my cousin's mailing address in China and guess that he has returned to China? I have a new idea recently and come to him to talk about investment. As he said that, he glanced at his cousin's agent and said, I didn't expect my cousin to be here too. You continue your work. I'll just go next door and wait. I won't disturb you anymore. Speaking, he waved his hands and prepared to avoid. It happened that Shen Yunqing came back from a meeting and saw Shen Qingzhou standing in his office. Why are you here? Zhang Lingzi watched helplessly as this man dropped from an altitude of 1.8 meters to at least 10 centimeters per second, and his voice became pitiful. Cousin, I'm a little tight lately. It seems that this is not the first time Shen Yunqing has heard similar words. What other fantastic ideas do you have? To put it simply, I only have 10 minutes to rest, or I can wait until lunchtime, then I will have an hour. Then let's wait for dinner anyway, there's still an hour left, so I can wait. It's been a long time since I've had dinner with you. My idea this time is a bit grand, and I can't explain it in a sentence or two. Shen Yunqing waved his hand, and Shen Qingzhou stepped back with a smile. Zhang Lingzi watched the exchange between the two from beginning to end. It seemed that this was the way the two cousins got along on a daily basis. Don't mention it, it's quite enjoyable. After sending his cousin away, Shen Yunqing walked towards Zhang Lingzi again. On the side, Liang Qingqing was still immersed in her boss's interactions with her family. She looked much more friendly and casual, and she didn't feel as unreachable as usual. When she came back to her senses, the person was already approaching, and she stood up in a hurry. Boss. Shen Yunqing nodded towards her, and moved a pot of green plants by the window that blocked the sun to the side. Then he checked that the water glass was not empty. Xiao Zhou didn't interrupt you to talk about work, did he? No, Zhang Lingzi smiled and shook her head. He also said that he and his fiancée were both my fans and wanted to sign autographs, but I told him to wait. His character is like this, he has no integrity. It's not the first time he came here suddenly today. I said he always goes in one ear and out the other, and then I didn't bother to talk about him. Let's have lunch together later. No problem. She didn't do anything anyway. Okay, go and get busy. Now you're the one interrupting our work talk. This time the person who retreated obediently became the owner of the office. Liang Qingqing couldn't help but raise her hands and rub her face. After seeing that the boss's wife was actually Zhang Lingzi, she secretly thought about how these two people usually get along. Until now, when she saw the real details of getting along, she felt that her imagination was still too poor. It turns out that the boss can speak so gently, and even pay attention to whether the green plants are blocking the sun and whether the water in the water glass has been finished. With his concise speech in front of his employees, when it comes to his wife, he's afraid of saying too little. Even if she only watched the two of them get along for a few minutes, she was sure that these two people must be very happy. Mr. Shen is quite busy, but it's the end of the year, so it's normal, Tong Yu said, and couldn't help but glance at Zhang Lingzi sitting next to her. It's really not surprising that she can accompany her daughter-in-law to attend international fashion festivals abroad when she is so busy. Let's talk about other arrangements. Tong Yu put the tablet back into her bag with ease before lunchtime. She feels that talking about work with Zhang Lingzi is a kind of enjoyment now. The other party did not listen to what she said. He was decisive and precise when proposing entry points. He always caught the points that she ignored or failed to remember. Especially when making a decision, you can basically make the final decision and never waste time agonizing over it. Otherwise, for an artist who has difficulty making choices or has a picky personality, the work at hand would probably take him a whole day, and he may not be sure yet. By the way, Tong Yu slapped her forehead as she packed her things and was about to leave. I almost forgot one thing. Do you still remember Director Li? Zhang Lingzi thought for a moment. Li Shuo, the director of Survival. Yes, he called me 2 days ago and said that the third episode of Survival will be filmed after the new year. It will be in March as expected. The second episode will be when you were on the crew of Empress Yuan Zhao. There was a schedule conflict at the time, so I missed it. This time I just wanted to ask if you would like to be a guest in another episode. He said it was just a question, and Mr. Xiao also said that it mainly depends on your wishes. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 677. After all, the situation Zhang Lingzi faces now is completely different from the situation he faced when filming the first episode. At that time, there was no way out, so I could only give it a try, so as to gain some popularity when the whole network was black. But now she has no shortage of popularity, and there are more opportunities to choose from in front of her. So even Li Shuo just made a tentative phone call, and he didn't have much hope for it from the bottom of his heart. But actually Zhang Lingzi quite likes this theme. Survival can be regarded as her first complete job since her rebirth. The previous programs only cleaned up the mess left by the original owner. Compared with other variety shows where you have to sing, dance, and play games on the stage under the guidance of the host, she still prefers survival, which is more exciting. Seeing Zhang Lingzi pondering and looking a little moved, Tong Yu pursed her lips and said, Director Li also said that he might design some new challenges this time. She could tell from Director Li's voice at that time that although he didn't have high hopes, he definitely still hoped that Zhang Lingzi could join. Where are the other guests? Except for Zhang Ziyu, there are also people who have bumped into the schedule. The original cast members are basically here, and it seems that there will be a few new guests after a pause. Are you planning to go? I'm still thinking of waiting for Empress Yuan Zhao. It will be aired and I will give you a big script while the popularity is still high. If there's a good script, I'll take it, if there's not, I won't take it. Understood, Tong Yu nodded helplessly. If there is a role you want to play, then take it, right? Then I will call Director Li back first, and then ask around the circle what productions will be available next year, and bring it back to follow you discuss it. Zhang Lingzi climbed up the pole and said, Thank you, Sister Tong. Why are you so hard? It's not until you get better that I can get better. Take good care of yourself and tell me when you're ready. Don't give it away. Liang Qingqing followed Zhang Lingzi and watched Tong Yu enter the elevator. Before returning to the office, she saw Shen Yunqing and He Zhu coming from the other end of the corridor. Simply stood there and waited. Qingqing, you go have lunch first. Liang Qingqing nodded, then I'll come back to take care of you after lunch. Don't worry, you can rest and come back later. Okay, okay. Just as Liang Qingqing turned around and went downstairs, Shen Yunqing walked up to Zhang Lingzi. Busy working. I'm done with my work in the morning. Shen Yunqing stretched out his hand to hold Zhang Lingzi's wrist. There are still a few meetings in the afternoon. It might be a little late to go back in the evening. Zhang Lingzi glanced at the man's tired brows and was pulled into the office. Let's have dinner later and have a good rest before going out to work. Good. The response was so fast and smooth that He Zhu, who was placing documents, couldn't help but look back. I think he almost had to talk a lot in order to let his boss take a break, but in the end, the boss's wife couldn't even say a word. Sure enough, some things disappeared without realizing it. No, he never had it. He can't stay in this office anymore. Boss, madam, I'm going to the restaurant to get some food. Xiaozhou is probably still playing games next door, so invite him to join us. La Zhuangding Heshu was very happy to do this. He responded and quickly went out to call for help. While the two of them went to get food and didn't come back, Zhang Lingzi asked Shen Yunqing to bring her mobile phone and make a video call to Anan. What about going to the temple tomorrow? Su Ling'an was quickly connected. Elder sister. I have returned to China. Is your school already on vacation? Well, I've been on vacation for 3 days. My grandma and I saw the video of my sister's catwalk on the phone. She looks like a queen. Zhang Lingzi felt happy when she heard her praising herself seriously. Just as she was about to speak, she heard another voice coming from Su Ling'an's side. How are the patients in Ward 303 doing today? Su Ling'an quickly covered the receiver, but it was too late. She watched her sister on the phone's face darken. You are in the hospital, who is sick? She said while this girl was standing blankly against the big white wall. It's grandpa. This time he was made angry by Zhang Lingzhi. Zhang Lingzi thought for a moment. Zhang Lingxuan's younger brother? What did he do? I got into a fight with someone and was stabbed in the kidney. Now I am staying in this hospital to recuperate. Zhang Lingzi. Boss Zhang's family is considered useless. Is it serious? I was just out of breath for a while, but I have recovered now. The doctor said I will be discharged from the hospital in 2 days. Zhang Lingzi nodded. This old man is quite strong. Of course it could be Anan. This girl is a great comfort to the old man. Anan, I'll take you to the temple to pay homage tomorrow. Even though Su Ling'an was smart enough, he couldn't turn away from this sudden topic for a while. Worship the Buddha. Let's take a break, just me and you. Zhang Lingzi glanced at Shen Yunqing. Your brother-in-law, there is no one else. Su Ling'an couldn't help but move. In the past half year or so, no, probably since I met my sister, too many things have happened around me, and it is hard to overstate how much my life has changed. There are many happy things, but also many bad things. To take a break, let's go with my sister. It makes me feel relaxed just thinking about it. Just looking at the hospital corridor in front of him, well, I will reply to my sister later. Okay, it's lunchtime. Remember to eat. I'll wait for your news. Hang up the phone. Su Ling'an went back to the ward where his grandfather lived. Although the ward is spacious enough, Zhang Nashuan does not live with the bad grandson. He is angry when he sees this kid now. Seeing her granddaughter coming back, she asked, Anan is back. Did your sister call? Well, my sister has returned to China. You two sisters haven't seen each other for a while. You don't need to keep an eye on me. Zhang Ye and the nurse are here. Go meet your sister for a meal. Zhang Nashuan was already ashamed of his lost granddaughter, and he was also targeted by his eldest son's family. To be honest, the more filial this girl is to him, the more guilty he feels. Su Ling'an poured a glass of water and handed it over. Sister said she wanted to take me to the temple to pay homage tomorrow so that I could relax. Zhang Nashuan just took a sip of water and almost spit it out after hearing this. Zhang Lingzi must feel that her granddaughter has been very unlucky since she recognized her as her grandfather, right? This is true. Thinking about it, I really can't refute it. Go, let's relax, have fun for a whole day, and then go back and get some sleep. When He Zhu and Shen Qingzhou came back carrying a food box, Zhang Lingzi received a reply from Su Ling'an. He also gave her the address of a hospital. I'll pick her up at the hospital gate tomorrow. Shen Yunqing nodded. Shen Qingzhou worked hard to put the food on the plate. He turned to look at the two people waiting to eat. By the way, my cousin's hand is injured. How should I eat? Zhang Lingzi was looking at the dishes on the table and replied casually, don't worry, someone will feed you. Shen Qingzhou immediately looked at his eldest cousin. He seemed to know why he saw his cousin-in-law here. The reason why I am brave is because the person who feeds the food needs to work. He Zhu hurriedly packed the food box. You three eat slowly, I'll go out first. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 678. This is probably the most difficult meal Shen Qingzhou has ever eaten since he learned to eat by himself. However, the two people eating with him did not feel his difficulty at all. One is fed naturally, and the other is fed more naturally. It is as if the person sitting opposite him does not exist at all, or he is just a talking painting. No, I can't stand it anymore. He had not even eaten a few mouthfuls, but he felt full already. Shen Yunqing accidentally put down her chopsticks and made a loud noise. Then Shen Yunqing gave her a look and said, you didn't say you had new ideas, Why didn't you tell me? Isn't it because you have a harmonious atmosphere and don't know how to find an opportunity to speak up? But now that I am asked, I naturally seize the opportunity to speak quickly. This time I want to make a mechanical butler type product. The main service targets are the elderly and children, as well as people who are sick in bed. The main function is companionship, monitoring, danger avoidance, and first aid. Speaking of his professional field, John Lingzi could clearly see that Shen Qing's whole person had changed. If we were to say that he was a cheerful and sunny boy before, then now he is one of those scientific research madmen on TV and movies. His eyes are so bright that he even gestures with his hands unconsciously. What interrupted his enthusiasm was Shen Yunqing, who had listened carefully but had a calm face throughout. He nodded in affirmation. It does sound like a very good idea. But before Shen Qingzhou could be happy, his voice changed. So how much investment are you planning to make this time? This question was like a ladle of cold water, dousing Shen Qingzhou's enthusiasm until only a small flame remained. He opened his mouth and asked tentatively, 100 million. Before Shen Yunqing said get lost, he added decisively with a strong desire for survival, I have added up the R&D budget for the early, middle, and late stages. I only need 50 million in the early stage. Once there are certain results, will we add more depending on the situation. Go and write down the investment project and hand it over. Yes, Shen Qingzhou stood up quickly. Cousin, you eat slowly, I'll leave first after I'm full. He'd better eat with his own fiancée, and maybe experience the fun of feeding him. By the way, when she walked to the door, Shen Qingzhou remembered something again, grabbed the door frame and turned around. I have already made the customized VR glasses. The construction period is a bit long because I added some special little designs in them. I'll bring it to you later, you're welcome. The second generation will be released later this year, please let me know if you have time. Zhang Lingzi. This is definitely the most random endorsement invitation she has ever received. With a nod, Shen Qingzhou knew that he would see his fiancée later and would do something to make her happy. Let's go, I'm really going this time. He couldn't wait to go straight to the elevator. Zhang Lingzi watched Shen Qingzhou leave with the wind at his feet, and then looked at the bowl on the other side that had not been touched at all with chopsticks. Has he always been like this? Well, he is 1 year older than Chihuahua, and he is the most impetuous, but it was different when he was in the research and development laboratory. Speaking of research and development, it seems that this item has been the most expensive at all times. Even until the end of research and development, a satisfactory result may not be achieved. Then all the money invested will be wasted. But judging from your reaction, this is very common. Shen Yunqing nodded. In the beginning, he graduated from college to form a technology company, and the money was not enough to find me. Later, he developed various technology products. You are his great supporter and the god of wealth. Zhang Lingzi laughed first as she spoke. Having been together for so long, she can see that Shen Yunqing is actually not very used to using various high-tech products. Even the most common mobile phone, she sometimes uses it to watch videos and play small games. But in Shen Yunqing's hands, the mobile phone is really just a tool for convenient communication. At most, he can search for the information he needs. This can also unlimitedly support Shen Qingzhou to research his favorite high-tech products. It is not wrong to say that he is the god of wealth. I see him doing what he likes, and he seems to be laughing and joking every day without any worries. I think this is not bad. Zhang Lingzi paused and turned her head to look at Shen Yunqing, who was picking up vegetables. Then what do you like to do? She knows herself, she likes to be in control of everything, she likes both power and flowers. But thinking about it carefully, she really didn't know what the person sitting next to her was passionate about. This person can do the best in everything, otherwise there would be no one who could still study crazy for one of the vests after thousands of years, play go better than her, assist the king in governing the place, and be called an all-rounder. It's just that there are so many that she can't guess what she really likes. Your Majesty, the food is getting cold. Shen Yunqing scooped up a spoonful of fish soup and handed it to Zhang Lingzi's lips. She raised her eyes to meet her close eyes and whispered back, "What I'm doing now is what I like." He is originally a person who has an indifferent feeling towards many things. He must be enthusiastic about it, maybe it is just the person in front of him. He is so passionate that he would not hesitate to change his fate against heaven. If the world knew about it, he would be called crazy. After drinking the fish soup that was just right in temperature, Zhang Lingzi's ears turned a faint blush unconsciously. Shen Yunqing's words are a bit hot on the ears. He estimated the time and came in to put away the tableware. He couldn't help but glance at the boss who was sitting on the sofa and unhurriedly adjusting his cuffs. His eyes touched a button on the other person's shirt that had been unbuttoned at some point, and then, he immediately looked away as if he had been burned. Sure enough, it was right to avoid it as soon as the meal was served. When Liang Qingqing estimated the time and rushed to the boss's office, she only saw her boss and Mr. He who were about to go out for a meeting. "People are not awake in the lounge at the back yet, you can wait outside and read a book," Liang Qingqing responded quickly. After watching her boss leave with Mr. He, she looked towards the restroom. He hesitated for a moment, then walked to the bookshelf to find a book to read. Although her work today is not very formal, it is still a serious working time. She doesn't dare to play with her mobile phone even if no one is looking at her. But when she walked to the bookshelf and glanced at the books on it, she was dumbfounded. As a boss, shouldn't you usually read books on investment, management, social sciences, and humanities that are helpful for doing business? But what are the books on this bookshelf? The Secret History of Yuan Zhao, The Empress of Yuan Zhao in the Eyes of Historians, The Wild History of Yuan Zhao. After looking around, I found that books on history accounted for almost 99%, and books about the Yuan Zhao period and Empress Yuan Zhao accounted for 99% of the history books. A bold guess came to her mind. Could their boss be a fan of Empress Yuan Zhao? End of chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 679. When Zhang Lingzi woke up, there was no one in the seat next to her. Zhang Lingzi was not surprised at all. Look at the time on the wall clock, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It is estimated that everyone who woke up earlier than her had already finished a meeting. When the ajar door to the lounge was pushed open, Liang Qingqing outside was still immersed in a book. She had taken down a history book before. When she first started reading it, she almost couldn't stand it because of the obscure content, but after persevering, she found it somewhat interesting. It was when someone came up to her that she suddenly woke up and almost dropped the book in her hand. Miss Zhang. In the morning, Zhang Lingzi really didn't pay much attention to Shen Yunqing's bookshelf. Now when she came out and saw Liang Qingqing leaning on the bookshelf, holding a book and reading seriously, she decided to come over and take a look. When I saw the name on the cover of the book, I was a little silent. When she first woke up, she knew that nearly 1,000 years had passed since her time. To be honest, she was quite curious about how future generations would comment on that period of history and her as a person. After that, I read some bits and pieces. Although there are many mistakes, overall, it is quite objective. But she dared to say that the books she found were definitely not as many as those on this bookshelf. Which book are you reading? Liang Qingqing closed the book. It's Yuan Zhao Yeshi. Zhang Lingzi. How should I put it? Contents such as unofficial histories are indeed more interesting than books that actually record history. Because the contents recorded in it are all inconvenient to be recorded in official history, and some are even simply the author's imagination. Since she was sure that she had not read the book collected by Shen Yunqing, Zhang Lingzi suddenly thought, "Ching Ching, please pour a glass of water and read it for me." From just reading to reading and helping with reading, Liang Qingqing adapted quickly. She just saw something interesting in this book and wanted to continue reading. This suggestion was exactly what she wanted. After all, she won't be able to read this book when she leaves here tomorrow. You can enter the boss's office wherever you want. After drinking some water to moisten her throat, Liang Qingqing was about to start reading from the first page. Zhang Lingzi just saw that she had read almost 10 pages, just read from where you just saw it. Very good. Miss Zhang is so considerate. However, Liang Qingqing soon discovered that Zhang Lingzi not only asked her to read and listen, but also discussed certain contents in the book with her from time to time. At first she could barely keep up with the other person's thoughts, but slowly she began to doubt herself. Are they really reading the same book? Moreover, when she went to eat at noon, she took the time to search for Zhang Lingzi's information, thinking that she would get to know the boss's wife well so that she could take better care of her in the afternoon. If I remember correctly, the information I searched said Zhang Lingzi graduated from high school, right? Why is it that I, a bachelor's degree graduate from a prestigious university, and now studying for a master's degree after working, can't keep up with the thinking of someone who graduated from high school? Zhang Lingzi looked at Liang Qingqing's blank look and knew it was not easy to continue the conversation, so she stopped talking without finishing her thoughts. Thanks a lot. Liang Qingqing didn't know how to reply. You're welcome. You go on and read this book, the author's literary talent is quite good. It's about the content. 2 points out of 10 is really barely enough. She actually speculated that the new emperor who succeeded her after her death was her biological child. How could she not know that? I don't know how Shen Yunqing felt when he read this book and saw this statement. I am probably as speechless as she is. Asterisk. The car merged into the evening traffic and drove towards Ziwan with stops and stops along the way. It was already past 8 o'clock in the evening and close to 9 o'clock in the evening. Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing even had dinner at the company. After dinner, Shen Yunqing rushed to have the last meeting, which completed the whole day's work perfectly. When they came out, they also saw Hizhu packing his bedroll, with survival after disaster written all over his face. The boss is back, and the pressure has been reduced drastically. Finally, I don't have to work hard during the day and sleep in the company at night. Zhang Lingzi thought about the feeling she had after reading the book The Wild History of Yuan Zhao with Liang Qingqing in the afternoon. She looked back at the long traffic in front of her and turned to her side. I have thought about what major to study if I go well in the college entrance examination next year. At the traffic light, Shen Yunqing stopped the car and asked, "What major?" "History." "Why?" "I read a book in your office today called Yuan Zhao Yeshi." Shen Yunqing almost couldn't control his expression when he heard the title of the book. "It seems that you still remember what is written there." History is so fallacious because later generations interpret the predecessors more literally. I am not qualified to comment on other eras, but they belong to my era, Zhang Lingzi said after a pause. I think I am still qualified to correct it. What do you think, Yun Cheng? Shen Yunqing took a breath and said, I think what your Majesty said is quite right. In fact, there are even more outrageous things. You saw it? Well, some people say that the new emperor's father. Zhang Lingzi was straining her ears to hear how outrageous it was, but as she listened, there was no sound. Turns his head and was about to urge him, when he saw Shen Yunqing's face looked a little strange. At this second, Zhang Lingzi suddenly remembered the fan novels related to Emperor Yuan Zhao that Lu Zhengzheng had recommended to her. Combined with Shen Yunqing's current state, a bold guess suddenly appeared in her mind. It can't be you, right? After a few seconds, Shen Yunqing nodded invisibly, yes. Zhang Lingzi. Wu's mother opened the door for Wu, and Wu arrived home. Sure enough, It is not the most outrageous, only more outrageous. The atmosphere of silence lasted for a while, the green light ahead turned on, and the car started to move again. John Lindsay looked outside the car window. I happened to see a family of 3 waiting at a red light on the side of the road. The father was pushing a stroller, and the mother was holding a bunch of candied haws in her hand, reaching out to the baby sitting in the stroller. The sweet taste made the little one open his mouth and stretch his neck to eat. The picture flashed by, John Lindsay looked back, and suddenly had an impulse. Yunqing, do you want a child? Shen Yunqing almost stepped on the brakes. He never thought that His Majesty would ask him this question, and he asked it so unexpectedly. At this moment, Wuji's words seemed to echo in his ears. Even if the merits are profound, this move is against nature, and there is no need to force children and heirs. At that time, he only cared about whether the forbidden technique could be successful. As for his heirs, he didn't think it was important at all. If the forbidden technique fails, where will the heirs come from? But now His Majesty suddenly asked. What should he say? Even if they wanted to, their children would most likely not come. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 680. Why did you stop talking all of a sudden? This question is difficult to answer. No, Your Majesty, why do you ask about this suddenly? As soon as it suddenly occurred to me, I asked. John Lindsay said as she tilted her head and looked at the expression of the person next to her. She saw that his jaw tightened slightly. This was a subconscious reaction of considering how to answer. I think this kind of thing mainly depends on fate. You really can't force it. John Lindsay nodded in agreement and looked away. The moment he raised his ears, he heard someone quietly heaving a sigh of relief. Why are you nervous? Is it still a sensitive topic about children? Or is there some other reason she doesn't know? However, this matter really depends on fate. If you have it, you will be happy, and if you don't, you will be comfortable. John Lindsay no longer wanted to ask further. The car drove into Z1. John Lindsay saw the summer solstice approaching as soon as she got out of the car. I have prepared some midnight snacks for Your Majesty and Sir. It's cold outside, so it will be more comfortable to eat something warm before resting. Should. Shen Yunqing was about to follow John Lindsay into the house when someone stopped him. Sir, are you having a conflict with His Majesty? A big question mark appeared on Shen Yunqing's forehead. Where did you see it? There is no conflict, so why do we sleep in separate rooms? Shen Yunqing. It's not because Z1's bed is too big and too heavy to move. There is no conflict, there are other reasons. That's good, that's good. Xiaoji patted her heart and breathed a sigh of relief. I've been worried since I received the news that you prepared another bedroom. Shen Yunqing, go and have a rest. I haven't lit the incense yet, so I'll go now. John Lindsay sat at the table with late-night snacks and waited for Shen Yunqing to come in. Go to the same bedroom tonight that I stayed in when I first came here. Okay, I'll let Xiaoji sort it out. One of them guessed that the other person had some reasons that she didn't know about, and the other one was still debating whether or not to say it, so they finished the late-night snack in silence. Xiaoji, who went to the bedroom to light some incense and came back, happened to be passing by. Seeing the silent atmosphere between His Majesty and Sir, he couldn't help but pause. Is there really no conflict? Or did you make His Majesty angry unilaterally? In any case, in his opinion, Your Majesty will definitely not make Mr. angry. Mr. has no ability to be angry with His Majesty at all. After finishing the supper, John Lindsay completed a simple wash with the help of Shen Yunqing. You won't have to worry about it tomorrow. When Shen Yunqing lifted the quilt on the bed, John Lindsay lay down and said, I'm asleep. Go to sleep. John Lindsay closed her eyes, opened them again after a few seconds, looked at the unmoved person standing in front of the bed, and suddenly said, there may not be a child between us, right? Shen Yunqing was suddenly startled. Zhang Lingzi knew that she had guessed correctly when she saw his reaction, which he had no time to hide. Did Wuja say that? Is this also one of the costs of using forbidden magic? Shen Yunqing nodded with difficulty. Zhang Lingzi smiled instead, sat up, and said, "Come on." Shen Yunqing took a step forward, knelt on one knee and stepped on the bed. The face that is still bright without makeup is close to her, followed by the fragrant and sweet peach fragrance. But this kiss was also quite overbearing. One party took advantage of the victory and pursued it, while the other party could only retreat and be defeated. Zhang Lingzi put her arm on Shen Yunqing's shoulder, being careful not to touch him at all. "Don't feel sorry. In my last life, I chose not to have children. When I was young, I was too ambitious and thought I couldn't be a mother, so I just didn't want one. In this life, being able to live another life and experience a different life is already an invitation. It's a blessing. One can't be too greedy, right? Right. Go and have a rest, don't get up late tomorrow, let in and wait for us." Shen Yunqing came out of the room and happened to meet Xiaozhi, who was still checking whether the doors and windows were closed. Xiaozhi glanced at the obvious teeth marks on his lips, then looked away calmly. "It seems like they have reconciled. My husband's ability to coax people is quite good." Shen Yunqing. "I'm too lazy to explain." Asterisk. Zhang Anfeng walked to the door of his father's ward with a fruit basket, peeked in first, and almost got hit on the head by a walnut. Come here, you are quite old, and you look like a thief." Dad Zhang Anfeng walked in with a sneer and looked around. "Why are you alone in the ward? Where are Anan and Zhang Ye?" Zhang Ye went to deal with the museum matters, and Anan and her sister went out to relax. "Anan's sister, is Zhang Lingzi back?" Zhang Nashuan glanced at his eldest son and said him in a neutral tone. Zhang Anfeng feels a toothache when he hears the news about Zhang Lingzi. If possible, he would like to block such a person from his life. But things often backfire. Some time ago, the internet was full of news about this person, and it was impossible to miss him. Now people are back. Still come back with a full harvest. Compare it to my own family. Dad, I admit that I did do a lot of stupid things before. Do you think I still have a chance to make up for it? Zhang Nashuan's eyebrows twitched when he heard this, and he opened his mouth. He finally swallowed back. "Why did I do it if I had known this? How do you want to make up for it?" Asterisk. At the entrance of the hospital, Shen Yunqing controlled the lowering of the rear seat window. Zhang Lingzi shouted to Su Ling'an, who was standing at the door of the hospital and wrapped like a small rice dumpling, "Anan, here." After running to the other side and getting in the car, Su Ling'an took off his thick coat and gave Zhang Lingzi a bear hug in the seat next to her. "Sister." Zhang Lingzi let her hug her for a while. "How long have you been waiting?" Su Ling'an blinked his eyelashes with small drops of water. "Not long after, I just came out." "Let go of your hand and look at the driver's seat in front, brother-in-law." "Well, buckle up and let's go." Su Ling'an asked while buckling his seat belt. "Sister, which temple are we going to?" "Yuchen Temple." A small question mark popped up on Su Ling'an's head. "Does any emperor have a temple with this name?" "Yes, but he's not very famous. It's normal that you haven't heard of him." Zhang Lingzi tried her best to cover it up, but Su Ling'an noticed something strange in her hands before she reached her destination. "Why are you still wearing gloves in the car?" The heating in the car was turned on enough, and Su Ling'an felt that the palms of his hands were getting a little wet. Zhang Lingzi had no choice but to explain. "My hand was injured a little while abroad." "Where? Let me see." "You can't touch it yet." Su Ling'an's outstretched hand quickly retracted. So along the way, Zhang Lingzi's hand became her focus. Zhang Lingzi. She knew it. There are many mountains around the imperial capital, and there are also many famous mountains. Many people have never heard of Yuchen Temple, because the mountain it is located on is just an unknown mountain. Shen Yunqing only had a simple route map drawn by Wuji for him to find the way up the mountain. For someone who doesn't have a road map, I'm afraid I don't even know how to go up the mountain. The three people got off the car at the foot of the mountain. They first followed the signs on the route map to find the way up the mountain. After climbing up for almost an hour, they finally saw a small temple sitting on the mountain wall in front of them. The temple door was open, and there was a young monk wearing grey robes standing at the door. When he saw someone coming up the mountain, he immediately ran up to meet them and said, "Three donors, please come inside." Zhang Lingzi was a little surprised when she saw that he seemed to be waiting at the door. "Did you know we would come here today?" Master said, "If it's not yesterday, it's today, and if it's not today, it's tomorrow." Zhang Lingzi. "That's it, that's fine too." End of chapter.